Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sports Today. I did tell you that we would be joining you through the day because there's a lot of sporting events going on, and this time we're going to be talking about the Hungarian Grand Prix qualifying. And obviously, this is a pretty interesting qualifying session. In fact, one of the more interesting ones I've seen in recent times, mainly because I think there was a bit of rain which came in later on in the session, and that kind of threw things off a little bit. So obviously, in Formula One, rain can be something of an interesting equalizer and throw up a few unexpected results. And that is exactly what's happened in this particular qualifying session. Why? Because, well, a certain George Russell of Mercedes has grabbed his maiden pole position of his career. Now, that is big news if you would know, considering Mercedes' plight this season. It is their first pole position of 2022, and it's not been claimed by Lewis Hamilton, but no, it's been claimed by George Russell, who's in his maiden season with the Mercedes team, and he grabbed a very good pole position. He put in a nice, flying, fantastic final lap, and he's taken pole. He'll be starting tomorrow's race from the front of the grid. What an accomplishment indeed for the young Brit, who has in many quarters been described as someone who is a world champion in the waiting. Now, today's qualifying session, as I said, pretty interesting in most ways. But first, let me go over the order of things, as it were. So, when you look at how things went in terms of qualifying, you would expect the two Ferraris as well as the Red Bulls to be up and about there in terms of the top 10. But that hasn't quite happened with the Red Bulls, and in fact, the reason for that is not necessarily just down to what was expected to be their struggles at this track. I'll get to that in just a bit, but let me first go through the order. It's George Russell in pole position, followed by Carlos Sainz of Ferrari and Charles Leclerc in P3. Lando Norris, by the way, takes a stunning P4, and he was on it throughout qualifying in this particular session. He was really doing very, very well. He was nailing all those flying laps. In fact, he was ahead of the Mercs at one point. P5 and P6. Well, P5 is Esteban Ocon's, and he's followed in P6 by his Alpine teammate Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton is in P7, Valtteri Bottas P8, Daniel Ricciardo is in P9, and you'd be wondering, well, where's Max Verstappen? He's in P10, my friends. And that's the thing. Verstappen was going for a final flying lap. His first lap wasn't that great. In fact, it was 1.446 seconds off the mark. So, he went for a final flying lap, but there was a bit of a problem with his DRS flap opening, and it wasn't opening, and so he ended up aborting it and coming into the pits. In fact, if you remember, he ended up suffering a similar problem during the Spanish Grand Prix weekend on race day. Remember, he was actually, there was a lot of struggles with him pressing the DRS button and the DRS flap not opening. That happened again today, and it happened at the worst time possible because it meant that there was no time for the engineers to actually fix the issue and then thereafter actually send him out there to get in one flying lap. Because remember, when you get out of the pits, your first lap, your out lap, isn't counted because you're trying to get temperature into the tires. After you're done that, the first lap which comes after you've done your out lap is the lap that counts. So he didn't have enough time to do an out lap, never mind in fact get in another lap there. So he had to, unfortunately, he's going to be starting from P10, but I think the Red Bulls do have some degree of pace. However, that hasn't been reflected in qualifying at all because Sergio Perez, Verstappen's Red Bull teammate, is in P11. Now, he also had a pretty mixed qualifying. He wasn't really up there in terms of pace, but he had one lap time deleted for a track limits infringement. Red Bull actually appealed it because they felt that it wasn't quite entirely over the line, and the stewards agreed with them. So they ended up restoring the time. Despite that, Perez went out there, did a time that was actually worse than the time that was first deleted and then restored, and then ended up missing out on Q3. So again, P11, hardly the place that Red Bull would have been wanting to start this week. And remember, this is going to be the last race weekend for about a month because there's going to be the summer break, and then after that, the season will return at the end of August. So they'd be wanting to end that last race on something of a high, but it doesn't really look like it's going to be happening. A lot of people pointing out that Sanket Joshi saying lovely quali, wholeheartedly agree. By the way, you guys know my Mercedes affiliation, so you can imagine just how pleased I am that Russell got that pole. And Shubhan Goyal points out, what a lap by Russell. Couldn't agree more. What a lap indeed. And I mean, he served up a reminder of why it is that he was nicknamed Mr. Saturday when he was at Williams, because today he was really on it, and this is the best I've seen him look and in qualifying for a while. So, and as Navjeet Singh points out, Red Bull actually kind of, they didn't really do a good job, and there's a spicy race incoming. I absolutely agree. I'm really looking forward to how the race is going to play out. And remember, Hungary is one of those tracks where, you don't often see a lot of overtaking. It's a very tough, technical, fun track, but overtaking can often be limited just a tad. But these Red Bulls have plenty of pace, and I expect them to be putting it on in the on race day. Sunil Patel, this is an English channel. If you want your news in Hindi, we have a sister channel named AajTak. Please do go there. But thank you so much for joining us here. Anyway, I'll just quickly go over the rest of the results in quali. So you had Guan Yu Zhou at Alfa Romeo. He's ended up in P12. And Kevin Magnussen, by the way, that Haas car has a ton of upgrades. It looks like a white Ferrari. Doesn't quite have the pace of the Ferrari though, because you had K-Mag in 13th, Mick Schumacher in 15th. And speaking of cars that got upgraded and somehow got worse, well, the Aston Martins didn't exactly have a weekend to remember either, because Lance Stroll, P14, Sebastian Vettel, who remember announced his retirement recently, only P18. And another team that haven't quite been able to live up to expectations this time around after having a very solid 2021, Alpha Tauri. Really up down there in the bottom, because Yuki Tsunoda only got P16, Pierre Gasly P19, and he also had a lap deleted for track limits. Not a good look. And Nicholas Latifi, by the way, he ended up topping the timing charts in qualify in practice session 3, but 20th here, and Alex Albon in 17th. Although I think Alex Albon kind of had a feeling that he could have done a little better, because he was apologizing to his team afterwards. So anyway, I'll just take a few more of your comments. Yes, Shubham Goyal, Alpine should be happy with that result. P5, P6, very, very solid. There, I think the catch of the midfield teams this year, because I think they are very, very much favorites for finishing P4. Norris also looked good. I absolutely agree with you. And yes, Sanket, McLaren both look good, and Mercedes are now going to be catching up in the constructor standings, because they've been, like, their car hasn't been the fastest, but they've been the most reliable of the top 3 teams. So obviously, they have been there to pick up the points, and I think they might just end up catching Ferrari in second place by tomorrow. Oh yes, guys, thank you for bringing up the Go Tifi meme. I really appreciate all of you all doing that. Good one. 10 out of 10 in terms of humor. I'm ending it with Piyush Prabhan's comment where he's saying that there's an interesting grid for tomorrow's race. Yeah, man. Absolutely. And if it does indeed rain tomorrow, then I can't wait to see what exactly is going to happen. So I don't know about you guys. I'm very excited about the race tomorrow. Obviously, even more so excited because 1, George Russell is on pole. 2, this is going to be the last race for about a month. On the bright side, football will be starting, and don't forget there's a Community Shield going to be happening later today. I'll be there joining you guys to talk about that as well. So don't forget to don't forget to join us for that, as well as for the live coverage from the Commonwealth Games. Thank you all so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us a comment, tap the bell icon so you know every single time we're going live. Follow us across platforms, whether on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And last but not least, download the AajTak app so you can get the latest sports news and updates at your fingertips. Thank you all so much once again for joining us. Bye-bye for now.